Bertha led her across the rutted road, skirting the crammed pack of laughing, caterwauling sightseers, who immediately let out a unified groan as the horse's corpse split beneath its girth as the elderly knackerman tugged too hard on the ropes wrapped around it. The crowd at the viewing side of this occurrence began to scatter in panic from the sudden stench, and cleared enough to give view to the culprit of the song. He was stood not on the street but in the open doorway of the public house, fiddle across his arm, a wide smile on his lips, a sliver of hair left on his pate, and sightless eyes aimed high above the approaching girls. "If I had a horse," he sang, "I'd feed it every night. I'd never leave it lying stone dead here on the street. Bye, boom, besoms." Dolly giggled like a sprinkle at the jest, and the blind man's head swiveled sharply in her direction. "Ha ha!" he shouted, still bowing the strings. "Do you like that'n? I'm a clever un, ain't I?" Men, perhaps 5 or 6 of them, having abandoned the entertainment of the demised animal behind them, suddenly rushed at the pub door, pushing the blind man sideways and off the tall step where he'd been standing. He fell heavily, holding his fiddle high from harm's reach, and so landing his full length into a merciful clump of weeds and tarcloth rotting away beneath the parlour's long window. He cursed in full voice. Laughs and jeers rose from the remnants of the crowd, for it was indeed a comical sight. "Sudden again, Willie," someone shouted. "Jangle at a blind man, would you?" he snarled. "Bastards." Bertha and Dolly ran to him. He pulled back, startled, but the sound of Bertha's cooing voice as she took his arm melted him, and he assumed the painful look of one mistreated and misused. "Take us up, lass," he groaned. "I'm certain I've broke somewhat vital, but not me fiddle, I hope." "No, no," Bertha said, "the fiddle's champion, and you are too, I'm sure of it. Just rise yourself up onto me arm." He stood suddenly, wobbled a little, and turned vaguely towards Dolly. "Here, hold me fiddle while I wipe myself down. Them bastards. It's thirst makes devil out of a man." Dolly cautiously took the instrument into her childish hands. Before she could help herself, she twanged the good strings stretched tight across the plain soundbox. She'd never seen, never mind held, a musical instrument before, and she felt giddy at its touch. "Oh, the blind man rasped at her. "I told you to hold it, not swivel a jig out of it." Sorry, Dolly murmured in fright. The man melted again at the sound of a young girl's voice, a child's voice. "Oh, go on then, play us a tune if you have to. I'll have a bit of a dance with your mother." Bertha tried hard to cover her laugh with false indignation. "I'm not her mother, I'm her sister, and she can't play for truffles. Give the man back his fiddle, Dolly, now go on." She placed the box back into the searching outstretched hands of the blind man, who smiled and cackled a laugh. "Canny lass, Dolly," he said. "I can teach you, you know, for a pot of Spanish juice and a crust. I can have you scraping a French polka in no time. Now where's that door? I never play on the street, me. The parlour's the place for me." They guided him a few steps to the doorway, and he went in without another word. They heard laughter from within as he pushed the high door of the barroom and edged into the gloom. It was noon, with more bells ringing from somewhere above them where the main city stood. They were hungry. They drank from a pump across from the Guildhall steps. Local folks passing by, especially men, eyed them warily. A group dressed in black and blue-tailed jackets and yellow waistcoats emerged from an entry a dozen yards away and fell silent as they passed them. One made a muffled comment in their direction, and his cronies laughed like conspirators. Dolly smiled too, but Bertha knew the nature of that laugh, and perhaps had heard the comment. Her face showed sudden concern. For an hour the two girls followed the busy riverside eastwards, past shabby barks and proud schooners, around capstans, log piles, creels, masts stretched out in agony, rudders gathered up in pain, bewildered by the noises and smells and faces, all gathered with stern intent and purpose, while they themselves wandered without direction through the writhing mixture of commerce and labour. Every time a keel floated past them on the dark water, they searched for a sight of their father, both secretly sure in their knowledge that such a sight would never come. As the river's busy day began to thin out, they turned back whence they'd come. The shadows from the forest of sails and masts grew longer. Dolly felt tired. Bertha felt a growing anger, though with her father or with herself she couldn't fathom. Her mind drifted, The weariness of the day was giving way to worry about the night ahead. She fretted for herself, a red-haired girl in a strange city, as much as for Dolly, a child in a cesspit of uncertainty. Dolly. Bertha's heart leapt in horror as she felt a sudden anguish of loss. Where was Dolly? Where'd she gone? In a beat of her heart, the child had vanished. By now, only a handful of people were in sight on the quay. Behind her, a few steps away, only the filthy river slid slyly by. Bertha had never felt this rushing emotion of panic before. It rendered her helpless, weak, confused. She moved slowly, her head spinning towards the water, her eyes wide, her hands trembling. "Bertha, look at this!" The child's voice was behind her, away from the water's edge, towards the stacks of bloodied fleeces that lay in waiting between a brace of upturned hulls. There was Dolly, her eyes skewed to one side with fatigue, and with a hand-sized crust of bread held out in Bertha's direction. The eldest girl staggered with relief. Dolly was jabbering. "Look, it's proper bread," she was saying. It was a big black-headed gull skimming down the alley with it in its gob. It had rogued it from somewhere up there, but it was too heavy for it. I was just in time, mind, because there was a struggle of his marrows ready to swoop down and snatch it off the cobbles if I hadn't got there first. It's like the man from heaven, you know, in the parson's story. I can't credit it. Bertha laughed. She laughed until she sobbed and clenched the back of her hand to her mouth. Then the pair sat on a stray fleece by the wall and tore into the crust. The quay was empty, save for the odd workmen and a few women struggling by with unknown burdens of heaviness and bulk. The girls felt the unwelcome whisper of cold for the first time that day.